need to get a firm understanding. I would like to see a card that they were thinking about making or could consider making if Malagos didn't exist.
Like, you want to
And
see
then I'd
how
be able to
actually limited it is, or limiting it is in terms of design space.
Yeah, because if the
makes
cards
sense.
that they can make with it are not really that interesting, then it doesn't really matter to me. But if they can think of cards, and I don't do enough with, there's a lot of people that make custom cards that I see every once in a while are interesting, but I, I don't know if there's anything that we're missing out on because Malagos is likely always going to be in standard from if we assume that that's what this the dragons being in the welcome bundle means. So the next little item we have here is a IGN interview with Iksar. I got to read through this. There's a bunch of very interesting questions that were asked here, just about the meta, what they kind of think about it, what they were expecting, and how it's kind of going right now. And it seems like they're happy with it. But there was a very interesting quote that I lost here that Iksar said, and it's a lot about, so the article says, they look at stats, but they also look at a lot about community feedback and what kind of what people are saying about the classes. So even if a class or deck is not performing very very well, but people are very against the deck, they think it's a very unfun thing. They don't necessarily, they want to take that into account. They don't want to just ignore something as people are complaining of, like when Quest Rogue first got banned, or not banned, got nerfed. Um, it didn't have a great win rate, but there was just such a large amount of the community complaining about it that it was a big factor in the reason that they decided to nerf it. And I don't know. That was one of the big things I got from this article. I'm gonna try to find the quote real quick because I found the area I was at. Um, he says something. He talks about he's wary about talking about data publicly because it can come off the wrong way. And they do really try to balance to perception to some degree. They want people to have fun, and they don't just look at the numbers. Let's see. Oh, here it was. Everything is looking pretty good data wise. Therefore, everything must be, or everyone must be having a good time. And that's the perception. They're saying that's the perception of what a lot of people have of them, but that's not how they look at things. And they are afraid that sometimes it comes off in the sense that they're saying, oh, the data shows everything's good, therefore everything must be good. So I really thought that was um, a very interesting line. Very good to know that they're, just because the meta is so diverse right now, there's so many classes, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're content with where everything is. So I don't know. Was there anything else that you guys saw in this interview that was interesting to you? Maybe Hat, was there a response that you got in here that you were happy to see, or maybe that you weren't so happy to see?
So we'll talk about this later in the explanation
Okay.
section. But again, and you're going to hear me say this a lot this episode, I think upon reflection they are internally consistent with their current development philosophy. And this article speaks to that. And I do not believe their current development philosophy is the same one that they've had in years prior. So I think this is an illuminating look into how they are going to design and evaluate the game going forward, and how they have been. And I think it's a little different than how it's been before. Significantly different. And I don't envision that changing unless there are things that we don't know. Which BlizzCon is in 6 weeks, so there are things we don't know because they have to announce something at BlizzCon unless you show up and they say a bunch of stuff and you're like, yeah, we know. That's not how that goes.
By the way, that's going to be hype. I can't wait for BlizzCon.
Pretty stoked.
Regardless of everything else, I'm so excited to see you guys again. Go back to that burger place we went to.
Yeah.
Pat can get a giant beer again. I can get another chocolate
giant
shake.
beer. I'm also going to make my standard offer to the Uber driver both to and from the airport. If we stop at In-N-Out Burger on the way, I will pay for your burger. Make that offer.
What was the place that we went to? I don't remember.
I don't remember the name of it, but I will find it again.
Was I drinking that night? I don't remember that at all.
It was like the afternoon, and it was kind of a retreat from the busy center, and it was.
We recorded the bonus episode right after.
Yep, and it was the perfect kind of dive place because I wouldn't call it good, but it was perfect.
Yep,
and the servers definitely were on roller skates. 100% were on roller skates. I remember that very clearly because it seemed efficient until it didn't. Like, that's going to be great for the first 90%, but the last 10% there is it's kind of significant risk. Anyways, we're not here to talk about roller skates. That's not what we're here for.
All right, so the last news item we have on here is about the Days of the Frozen Throne, just kind of how they came up with it, and seems like people are not that excited about it. It definitely feels like it revolves around the Tavern Brawl this week, and I haven't had the opportunity to play it, but I will say that I was mostly right last week about you're going to start as a Death Knight, but it sounds like a lot of people are saying that Rexar and Jaina are quite good, and not really all that surprised that that's the case. In case you haven't played the Brawl yet, you get to choose a class, you start as the Death Knight, and then you get a deck of 30 random cards. So I think that the fact that the decks are all completely random makes it probably a little less fun, and maybe points to some issues with some Death Knights being more popular than others, or more powerful than others would be a better word. But I think it's at least an interesting idea.
That's a pretty good segue, because there's something else I forgot to link in here, is that I did a video for Tempest Storm highlighting the top 5 Death Knights of the Frozen Throne. We wanted to do that because basically inspired by the Brawl. So that's up if y'all want to watch it. It's just kind of a fun video. That just reminded me. Sorry for interrupting.
No, that's perfect. Definitely, I will make sure that is also linked in the show notes. I already have your video on In the Works in there. And then also make sure you log in to get that Golden Happy Ghoul. Very, very good card. Zoo Warlock still a very powerful deck and worth it. And then also check out the Bundle Up bundle. It's $20 or $20 in the US for 30 packs of Knights of the Frozen Throne. And Hat put it perfectly that old Bodicus, this would have been a snap buy, but I think I have all of the cards from Knights of the Frozen Throne, so don't really need this, but this is a pretty good deal. Definitely worth checking out. It's a good catch-up mechanic, as Hat described it. So if you're looking to catch up on and get some more cards for a great price, this is a great option.
We've got 6 months left on the probably most powerful current set in Standard. If you don't own a bunch of Death Knights, or Ultimate Infestations, or any of the other number of crazy cards, or Keleseth, or Lich King, that was a good set. What the heck?
Yeah, that set was really good.
So, if you don't own these cards, and you want to play the next 6 months of Standard, you should probably buy this thing. And if you're saying I already have this card, it is probably not for you.
I think the only legendary I need really is Archbishop Benedictus. And I don't really need him, but man,
yeah, need is a strong word.
I want to play the decks with Benedictus in it.
I don't know if I want to play them right now, but when they were viable, it was a lot of fun to play Benedictus. Also, this isn't in the show notes, but the cheering for HGG is live, and if I understand correctly, the price per pack, if you're ever planning on buying packs, then putting the same amount of money into cheer to get the packs. seems about even for what it usually costs, and plus they've already hit a stretch goal. So if they hit more of their stretch goals, that just means more packs and more value for your bucks. So that's another option if you're looking to get a bit more dust, get a bit more cards, and also it supports some of the players on HGG, which is I'm a big supporter of supporting professional players and giving them a little kickback for performing well in tournaments, which seems like a great segue into the tournament section. Hat, why don't you take it away?
It's the grand tournament!
All right, so we had a couple of major tournaments this week. Well, one major tournament this past weekend, the last HCT qualifier, the North American qualifier. It got us our last round of 4 that are going to make it to the Fall Championship next month. We had Just Sayin', About Time, and Bloody Face go 2-0, qualify in the group stage, and Languagehacker and Tincho 2-1. Pelletier, Purple, ETC, and Sehun were in the top 8 but did not qualify, they just missed. We also had the HGG start their group elimination phase. It is 4 groups of 4 teams. Again, the format is still the weirdo HGG format, where you bring 9 open decklists, and you secretly pick and ban, and you end up with 5 of them, and then you play them in a pre-selected order regardless of winning or losing. So, Group A, Portugal and Spain are 1-0, Chile and Brazil are 0-1. Group B, Bulgaria is 2-0, guaranteed to move on to the next round. Great Britain is 1-1, Hong Kong is 1-1, the Netherlands are 0-2 and out, and they were one of the favorites to advance further in the event, but we'll be talking about them a bit later as well. New Zealand, 1-0, Singapore 1-0, USA and Chinese Taipei are 0-1, Norway and China are 1-0 in Group D, Switzerland and the Ukraine are 0-1. In Norway, maybe a team that you're familiar with because one of their players is named Hunter Ace, so they have a natural advantage. Now, as far as the tournament meta, I want to talk about the HCT NA meta. I don't have the specific top 8 data here. I actually have the whole tournament data, which I think is interesting. Druid was by far the most popular tournament. There were 72 players playing Druid out of 74. 32 token Druids, 15 taunts, 15 mallies, 7 togwaggles, and 3 bigs. There were 61 warlocks, 39 were even, 11 were zoo, 8 were cube, 2 were mecha'thun, 1 was control, 56 rogues, 33 were quest, 23 were odd, and that I think is the most important line, because the rogue is where the tournaments split and how they focus their lineups. You'll see that when we get to the top 4 lineups. 44 hunters, 22 secret, 20 recruit, 2 spell, 25 shamans, 23 of them were shutterwalk, 2 were even, 23 warriors, 15 odd, 4 taunt, 4 mecha'thun, 14 priests that were 12 control, 1 mecha'thun, 1 lyra, 3 paladins, the entire tournament, 2 odd and 1 OTK control. There were 3 mages in the entire tournament, and they were all Alaneth tempo mages. Kind of shows how class diversity is not something that all classes are benefiting from equally right now. Now, the top 4 lineups, you've got 2 different groups of lineups. You've got ban rogue and beat rogue. There was 1 of each in 2-0 bracket, 1 of each in the 2-1 bracket. Just Sayin' and Tincho, they played a beat quest rogue. Token druid, secret hunter, odd rogue, Zulok, go. Go face. Hit him in the face. It worked really well. And then the ban rogue lineups, which were all about targeting control strategies, and didn't want to get quest rogued, were Mally druid, cube hunter, quest rogue, and even warlock for bloody face, and taunt druid, quest rogue, shutterwalk, and cube warlock for Languagehacker. And they both worked out for them, 1-2-0, 1-2-1. And we've got some, as Appa calls it, some hat story time. Boy, do we have some games for you. We have one from the HCT NA this week. This was recommended to me by Schwal, a regular in every Hearthstone Discord that I am in. And then we had one that was recommended to us by Wicked Good from HGG that happened just a couple days ago. So the game we're going to talk about in HCT NA is not from the top 4, not from the top 8. It was in the Swiss rounds. Conrad versus Languagehacker. Conrad was playing Cube Hunter. Languagehacker is playing Shutterwalk. Now, Conrad opens this game. Got a good curve. Candle Shot, turn 2 Keleseth, turn 3, 3-3 Mind Control attack, turn 4 Shutterwalk. Pretty good opening. Turn 5, Languagehacker. He's got kind of a typical Shutterwalk hand, not a lot going on. He's got 2 Urshocks and a Hex, which is really, really good against your average Cube Hunter draw. but it's also kind of slow. It doesn't do much. Now, on turn 3, he draws Mana Tide. Turn 4, he actually has to face down a 4/7 Houndmaster Shaw, drawn right after that turn 2 Keleseth. So he has to use a Hex early instead of saving it for later, which you really want to do against a deck with Carnivorous Cube in it. And then turn 5 is facing down 5 minions, like, I guess I'll Farsight. Oh, Volcano, clear your board. So, it's kind of nice. And Shudderwalk is drawn in hand, and there's a 5/5 that's popped out of a Devilsaur Egg that he deals with cleanly, and it's starting to look pretty good. Languagehacker healing range back up, he's at 28. And even when Kathrina comes down, it's Kathrina, it's a couple Witchwood Grizzlies. And then there's, to respond, Languagehacker goes with Electra Lightning Storm, which almost clears everything, except that 6/5 Kathrina, -2 health, -2 health, it's a 6/1. Okay, a little unlucky, it's fine. His hand is still Grumble and Shudderwalk. He's overloaded for 4 next turn, but he still needs to get his combo pieces going. And then Stitch Tracker's a 3/3, and then get a Serenite, and the pressure is actually still going. He goes Lightning Storm and Serenite back, and then Hagatha comes down, and the game starts to get a little silly. So, Languagehacker, this is where it's going to get harder to follow and more ridiculous as I keep talking. Languagehacker gets down to 12 life. He's against a 4/4, a 4/3, and a 3/5, and a Candle Shot, which is lethal. Life Drinker gets a Frost Shock, Grumble it back, the Stormbringer. We might get some legendaries in this game. That's the 7-mana legendary spell, by the way, that turns all of your minions into legendaries. Next turn, that life Drinker was vital because he goes down to 1 life. Conrad is 1 mana, or 1 damage off lethal. So that 1 mana Life Drinker gets played again, gets a Fork Lightning. Then Shudderwalk comes down, 2 more Life Drinkers to trigger, a Freeze, a Hagatha, clean up the board. He gets a 6/3 Shudderwalk, it's against a 4/1 that's not frozen. No Chain Gangs to be found, though. Hasn't played any Chain Gangs. And that Shudderwalk dies to Mark and Candle Shot, so we're not a Shudderwalk deck anymore. Second Life Drinker is drawn, 1 mana Grumble in hand, so why don't we Life Drinker? Oh, by the way, that's a second Stormbringer. Then why don't we 1 mana Grumble? That's a Lava Burst. So we Lava Burst, we Fork Lightning, we clear the board, and Grumble gets us a Spellstone. And then Life Drinker gets the Feral Spirit when we're going again, and what is happening? Conrad is down to 17. 12 of that, 13 damage, is just Life Drinkers. Game state is weird. There's a Mana Tide and a Feral Spirit come down, they get Mossy Horde. Double Serenite comes down for Languagehacker. There's a Tidal Surge and a Wind Fury just waiting. The game hasn't gotten silly yet. Because then next turn, Farsight into Zola. And then you Zola the Chain Gang and you get an Unstable Evolution. And then he Unstable Evolutions the Zola 4 times and gets an Antonidas. And then he Wind Furies the Antonidas and Frost Shocks. And he's got a 5/7 Wind Fury Antonidas. And Conrad has to pop a Spider Bomb. He has a 50-50 to hit the Antonidas. Does not hit it. What? What? 5/7 Wind Fury Antonidas survives? And then 2 Chain Gangs come down. And a bunch of spells get generated. 4 Fireballs in hand. But the hand is at 10 cards, and the last spell generated off Hagatha is an Unstable Evolution. So he casts it on his Antonidas to not overflow his hand, turns into a Grand Archivist, which then gets a Volcano, which then clears his own Serenite Chain Gangs. And he's facing down 8 damage, plus the hero power. Rexar rolls. Gets a Direwolf Alpha. An Owl. He can play it, he can silence his own cube, and he's 2 damage off lethal. But he doesn't get it, and he concedes before. He can get fireballed down to death by the Shudderwalk Shaman. What?
With Antonidas.
What? What? Why? How? What? I don't know. Schwal recommended to me and said, Game 4 of this series is incredibly infuriating and you should talk about it in the show. And I did, and here we are. So thank you, Schwal. I appreciate it.
Not sure infuriating is the word I would use. I think spicy is the word I would use.
If I were the cube hunter that lost to the Unstable Evolution Wind Fury Antonidas play, I would probably not be thrilled.
Look, man, whenever you queue up against either Thrall or Morgul, you should know what you signed up for. Signed up for some nonsense.
There were 0 players in that game that signed up for that. Nobody signed up for that. That was involuntary Antonidas. That is involuntinitis.
Whenever I put Hagatha in my deck, I know I'm signing up for games that
That's-
make no sense.
But sometimes you get bonus included, and this was a bonus game. Now, the next game has a lot less RNG. There's much more. There's a really interesting game state at the end of this I want to talk about. So we're going to talk about HGG. So this is Losefield from Hong Kong. He's playing Shutterwalk Shaman. And Thijs, who's playing his OTK Control Paladin deck, which he's been playing on stream, is actually pretty good by the numbers. And they're both really slow decks. Not a lot goes on early. Losefield gets down a Mana Tide. It sticks. There's a Keleseth. Thijs stocks up his hand with drawing combo pieces. Got Life Drinker approaching turn 7. But Thijs' hand on turn 7. Double Ancient Brewmaster, the 4-mana one. Sunkeeper Tarim, the Coin, and the Uther Death Knight. And there's a couple points in this game where Thijs plays really intelligently. There's an Acolyte that comes down earlier in the game, and he says, I'm going to Shrink Ray, so it goes from a 1-3 to a 1-1, so you only draw 1 card. And then he says, I'm going to use Sunkeeper Tarim to buff your Acolyte and my Righteous Protector, so your Acolyte only draws 1 card. It's kind of cool. He gets his board cleared by Electra and Lightning Storm, but then Uther comes down after a Glacial Shard freeze wears off. Zola's in hand, there's double Brewmaster, and for those that don't know how this works, the hero power generates 4 unique 2/2s, and it checks when you use it to not generate another 2/2 that's in play. So the goal here is to get 3 of them in play and then bounce them back to your hand with either Ancient Brewmaster or Zola. You have 3 of the 2/2s in your hand, you play all 3, then you hero power for the 4th. And then the Uther hero power ability, 4 horsemen, they trigger an OTK.
Yeah, it works how the Shaman hero power works. It doesn't duplicate the same thing if it's on the board.
Correct. So, Thijs has the Uther down, his hand has all these bouncy cards in his hand, Call to Arms for Loot Hoarder, Righteous Protector, and Crystal Smith Kangor, and Zola copies a hero-powered 2/2. Mind Control Tech takes away the Loot Hoarder, trades happen just leaving Crystal Smith Kangor, Grumble returns 5 minions to Losefield's hand, but then another 2/2, a different one, goes back into hand with the Brewmaster, Giggling Inventor comes down to hold off the board, and Thijs is at 30. And Losefield's hand, he's got all the combo pieces played, but his hand is full. He's got the 1-mana Shutterwalk, because last turn he played Shutterwalk and then grumbled it. But his hand has 10 cards in it, he burns the second Life Drinker, so he'll only ever get 3 life per Shutterwalk. And he has to play cards that all cost mana, while he's trying to do exactly 30 damage. So he can't do exactly 30 damage, right? And Thijs is going to win the next turn. He's got 3 of the 2/2s in hand. He just plays them out, plays the 4th. But remember how I said he played a Giggling Inventor? And he had a Crystal Smith Kangor? So what Losefield does is he plays 2 Glacial Shards to freeze 2 minions, and then bounces them back to his hand and freezes 2 more. And Thijs doesn't have room on the board to play all 4 knights. To play all 4 horsemen. Can only play 2 of them. That was the only out to not die right away. And then he had cleared his entire board, right? He was able to trade in his own minions. So next turn, Losefield was going to be able to play 10 Shutterwalks that eat it for 3. That's 30. So what Thijs does is he has 1 2-mana minion left in his deck, and he has Call to Arms in hand, and he plays it to get his Plated Beetle, and attacks in his 2 1/2 Annoyatrons, and then Pyro Equalities. Is at 30 with 3 armor. He gets Shutterwalk for 30 next turn. Trollbane, Nazgrim, Whitemane, Mograine, good game. 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. Super cool to watch. Really, really next level from both players, because the casters had no idea what was going on. They did not see the quadruple freeze play. And then Thijs just goes and gets 3 armor against the deck that can only deal 30. It was super fun to watch. Really, really enjoyed it. Very, very well played by both. And Thijs is good at Hearthstone. And Cardigan is not just way cool. It's ice cold. So, while my host refused to humor me, coming soon, we've got the HCT Championships in a couple weeks. This week is going to be mostly more global games. I couldn't find any other major tournaments that were playing this weekend. But there's definitely going to be discussion of the global games to get into group play. It'll give us something to go over, even though the format's a little wonky. As you can tell, the play is very high level, and all the teams that are here deserve to be here, so we definitely want to give them the time to talk about that. And that's our tournament section. So, thanks all for listening to Hat Story Time. And I think it's time that we cut to the chase and talk about, well, I'd say the elephant in the room, but we've talked about that a couple times. We're going to talk about In the Works.
Stampy, no. I'm just going to let y'all do y'all's thing. Mostly Hat, though, because he's got a lot to say.
I'm going to assume we all have a lot to say.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
And
Yeah, I just documented mine and packaged it in 22 minutes of a video.
Yes. But for those that haven't seen your video, foolishly, we want to make sure, first thing first, nobody's quitting Hearthstone here. Podcast's still going. We're all going to keep doing podcast and Hearthstone. No quitsies. That's first. Sky's not falling. Like, the elevation might have dropped like a teeny bit, but it's not falling. Second of all, the community is in an interesting place right now. And while I wrote 2,200 words, I am not going to read them all to you line by line because I don't think that'd be compelling content. I will link it after the show. But the tone of this section is going to be, we want to make sure we're being honest. We're not going to sugarcoat our feelings, but we're not going to be hopelessly negative either because I don't think Hearthstone is going to a hopelessly negative place. I think this is an evolution, just not the one that we anticipated. And I envision all of us will have quite a bit to discuss. But I want to quote one of my favorite books here because I think it speaks a lot to the social and community interactions that we've seen around the game as of late. A bunch of people over the past month or so have just commented on, I'm logging in less, there's something about this meta that's less engaging, game feels a little stale, I'm tilting so easily, and there's a bunch of different concerns, right? Giggling Inventor, too strong. Juicy Psych Melon destroying Wild. Standard hasn't changed enough. Druid is too good and has always been too good. Questro keeps Standard from being interesting. Matchups are too polarized, etc., etc., etc. Okay. I'm not identifying with any one of these. I'm going to quote The Name of the Wind here, one of my favorite books. Listen, if tomorrow we pulled into town and someone told you that there were shamblemen in the woods, monsters that eat people in the woods, would you believe them? My father shook his head. What if 2 people told you? Another shake. Ben leaned forward on his stump. What if 12 people told you, with perfect earnestness, that shamblemen were out in the fields eating? Of course I wouldn't believe them, my father said, irritated. It's ridiculous. Of course it is, Ben agreed, raising a finger. But the real question is this. Would you go into the woods? My father sat very still and thoughtful for a moment, and Ben nodded. You'd be a fool to ignore half the town's warning, even though you don't believe the same thing. And I think this applies really significantly to what we're going to talk about. There is no one concern I've heard that I firmly agree with. I am asking the question, and I think we all should ask the question, why are so many people unhappy in so many different ways? And expressing it in a way that indicates they are engaging with the game less frequently, less significantly. That is the question I think we're here to answer. So what do you all think?
I don't know. This is a hard question for me to answer because I don't know. I'm just on just about the opposite end of the spectrum from what I think, at least most of where I interact on with Hearthstone on social media and stuff. I think I'm on the opposite end of the spectrum of what most people are feeling. Most people are frustrated and bored, or they're just logging in less or less just interested in general. And I'm completely the opposite. This is one of the most engaged I've been with the game in a while. I really enjoy this meta a lot.
But are you
I
playing
like
it the same way that you always have?
No, I'm not playing Hearthstone in general the same way that I always have.
So, okay, so that's really interesting. Explain to us and the listeners, what do you mean by that? Because I think that's fascinating and key to what we're going to talk about.
Oh my gosh, put me on the spot. All right, let me try and dissect my mindset real quick. I don't know. it's hard to put into words, but I guess there's a way I can describe it as comparatively to how I used to be. So, whenever I was on the podcast before I took a break, I was very results focused, and I just wanted to hit legend, and then I wanted to climb in legend, and then climb higher and higher and higher, and just see the numbers go up. And whenever they didn't, it was very disheartening because I just set goals for myself at specific ranks, which don't really mean anything, instead of setting personal goals for myself that are not that are like improvement goals. And the longer I played with that kind of mindset, the worse and worse it got to me over time, to the point to where it was a bunch of close to 50-50 Jade Druid mirrors that whenever I was winning 10, losing 9, it felt like I was going nowhere, and the pressure that I put on myself just kept compounding, just day after day, week after week, until a point where I felt like I wasn't progressing at all. And at that point, I was playing so little Hearthstone because I was feeling unrewarded and unfulfilled that I was playing League of Legends, I was playing Eternal, I was playing Gwent, I was playing the Elder Scrolls Legends, I was playing Overwatch a lot, I was playing Rainbow Six Siege. Basically, any game that even if I was terrible at, I had some sense of forward progression in I completed my placements in Overwatch or League of Legends, and like maybe I'm climbing a few ranks here or there, because I wasn't doing that in Hearthstone, and it was becoming frustrating. And that was a lot to do with how I was setting goals for myself, in that my goals were, and still are sometimes, and I'm still working on this now. My goals weren't let's be better than I was last month, or like let's focus on hand reading more this week, or let's focus on game planning better and see if we can scrape out some unfavored matchups or something like that. I was setting goals like let's hit rank 5, or let's hit rank 1 today, or let's hit legend. And then every time I wasn't making significant progress towards that number goal, I was getting more frustrated. And now my goals are let's get on Hearthstone and have fun and just try and play the best I can that day. And my goals are just like be better than I was the last day. And I just don't really focus on the rank whenever I'm playing now. I just focus on myself and what I can do better, and have a session of playing, and then afterwards kind of reflect on that. And I don't know. It was just a whole 180 mindset for me that took a while, and it took a break for me to really realize it. And I don't know if that's the case with a lot of people in the community. They're being like results focused too much, or if it's a mindset thing, but it feels pretty widespread to be that. But I don't know. Maybe I just have a positive outlook and see this meta through rose-colored glasses.
I don't think it's about the meta. I think what you just said is really, really important. I don't know, but you were pushing. Oh, go ahead, Appa.
Let me just plug this real quick, because while I do have vastly more positive mindset than I used to, over I think the past month or so, I have felt myself starting to get a little more frustrated, just because I was starting to slide back towards like, man, I just want to hit legend, or like, just let me hit like top 500 or something. And I was starting to slide back into that kind of frame of mind, and I noticed myself getting not outwardly toxic, because I try and just keep that all inside. But I mean, if I'm being honest with myself, I was becoming pretty toxic again in my mindset. And I know this is going to sound terrible, but this is just what happens to me sometimes. Is if I lose at rank 4 or something, mentally, sometimes, like, because I recognize, hey, I'm not like a rank 4 end of the month like highest I'll ever be caliber player, So if I lose to somebody there in like a favored matchup or a close game or something, I'll get frustrated because there's something inside of me. There's some elitism inside of me that says, man, you shouldn't have lost to this guy. He's worse than you. Even if that's not the case, it's because he's at rank 4. And for some reason, mentally, I'm like, man, rank 4 is beneath me or whatever. Not that's how I actively think, but subconsciously, I hope I'm making sense. And I felt myself starting to gravitate towards that, not a lot, but a little bit. And I noticed it. And I'm like, man, I need to just kind of dissect this and figure out what's going on and why I'm doing this. And I actually found this guy from Team Liquid's League of Legends team. They make videos every week and stuff. And this guy, I didn't know he was their mental coach and their not like psychologist, but I guess mental coach is just the word for it. And he was on one of their videos talking about something. And it just made a ton of sense and clicked with me a lot. So I looked him up, and he actually has a few books out, and I'm reading through one right now, which is helping me a lot. His name is Jared Tendler, and the book I'm reading right now is called The Mental Game of Poker. And while it is tailored to poker, I'm taking a lot of the lessons from it and kind of applying it to Hearthstone because it seems like a lot of them translate very well. And it's really helping me like lead me through what my weaknesses and strengths are and dissect my feelings as well. A big part of what I've heard him talk about so far is don't just focus on your strengths and don't just focus on your weaknesses, but try and improve them both at the same time. So your graph of improvement can like move at the same pace. And this is on Amazon, the link that I had, but you can go to his Twitter, and I think he has like coupons for a free book. That's how I got it on Audible. But anyways, I felt myself getting toxic again, so I was looking for resources, and then I found this, and it's been really nice lately. Just listening to this and kind of overcoming my own flaws and figuring out what a lot of them are. And I feel like once I finish, I'll probably be able to kind of tailor all of this to me and just become a better player throughout it, because my mental game honestly is definitely the weakest part about me. I think I'm a very strong technical player and tournament player, but honestly, a lot of what I had problems with in the past and what I still do is laddering. I have so much anxiety about it, and there's an elitism that I don't like grinding the lower ranks, and there's a lot of stuff I have to work on. So I'm just trying to get through it all.
Yeah, a lot of what you said really resonates with me too. I've talked about it a few times on here, and um, I don't know how much it gets to the listeners. I also have a lot of issues with tilting, especially I guess just tilting in general. I have a lot of issues when I'm playing by myself of getting very upset when I lose games, because even though I know the correct mindset in my head is that you don't deserve anything, you earn your wins, and there are things you can do in most games um to improve your odds of winning. But I definitely have the mindset creep in every once in a while that, oh, I deserved this win, it got taken away from me, or just really really bad attitudes. And you know when I stopped playing Magic, a large reason for my departure from it was um, that I felt like the creators of the game did not have the competitive players' interest in their when they're making decisions. And I'll reiterate what Hat said. I am not planning on quitting at all. I love this game, and I love the community especially, and this podcast comes first and foremost over everything. But I have been playing a lot of World of Warcraft. It's where I've been spending most of my time, and frankly, the first weekend that I spent pretty much only playing World of Warcraft and not playing Hearthstone, I came out of it thinking that, wow, I didn't tilt at all this weekend because I wasn't doing anything that was worthy of tilting.
You came out of the first weekend of World of Warcraft saying, wow, really?
Okay. Thanks, Hat.
You said that. I didn't say that. Muting again.
So it was just kind of a relief that I hadn't had in a while, and I'm kind of in a weird spot compared to you guys because you guys both play a lot of tournaments, and I've never really been much of a tournament player. I always really enjoyed grinding ladder and getting higher finishes and proving that I can compete with really high ranked people and do really well. So it's kind of weird. It's a weird spot for me to be in because tournament mode being put on the back burner got announced, and it realistically doesn't affect me a whole lot. It is likely that I would play a lot of tournament mode if it was a thing, but it's not really the thing that I look forward to when I play on the ladder. I actually kind of like the best of one system, even though I know that's not what a lot of competitive players like. It's just how I enjoy playing the game at the times at which I want to play, at the amount of games that I want to play in a session. There's no long time commitments, and I feel like I'm in a weird spot right now because I am playing a lot of WoW, and that means that I don't get a lot of time in Hearthstone, and I don't feel like I dislike Hearthstone now. It's just that I'm putting just so much time into WoW that Hearthstone takes a hit. And I think I still really enjoy Hearthstone. It's just that I have so much work to do in this game. And as Appa was saying, you just see such massive growth in such a short period of time playing something that you just haven't done in a long time, or something that's kind of new to you. That going over to Hearthstone and not really being able to see as big a gains is, I guess, somewhat disheartening. But it's not that I wouldn't really enjoy playing Hearthstone. It's just haven't been putting as much time into it. So I feel like I'm kind of in a weird position because I don't like the direction that Blizzard has kind of gone with the abandoning of tournament mode now. That seems not very competitive focused mindset, which is, I like playing games where you can be somewhat competitive in it. And so I don't really like that direction, even though it doesn't really affect me. So it's kind of weird. I still love Hearthstone. I especially love the community. I'm not going anywhere as long as you guys will have me on the cast. I'm going to be here. It takes priority over everything to me. Yeah, I don't really know what else to say about it. It's kind of weird.
Did you want to jump in, Hat, or did you want me to?
We called a meeting bot. I guess you're fired.
All right.
No.
Later.
No. You can go back to raid.
Want to do podcast? No.
No. It's click. We almost got that meme, but we didn't plan it well enough beforehand. So I am glad that you guys said what you said, because it illustrates something that we've heard this without realizing we were hearing this for a while now. Because think back to the first bonus episode that we did. And one of the biggest questions that we asked were about the experiences of players that were not in the 5 to Legend bracket that we engage with on the show every season, that started below rank 5 with the new Reset 4 rank system. And that was prompted by a tweet from Lindsay Tunsil, who is a good friend of mine and plays a little bit more casually, but still played a good amount, and tweeted that she was playing less. And the feedback that we kept getting from people that were in 20 to 15, or 15 to 10, or 10 to 5, or even some 5 to Legend players, was about losing that feeling of progress, right? They said, I go through the same ranks every month. I used to feel like I really climbed, and now I feel like I'm just stuck, right? And especially month to month. After the 3rd month in a row of playing from 15 to 10, That's your pool now. It's not a climb, it's a pool. You're not going in a direction, you're staying where you are. And we heard some of that at the higher ranks. It was actually B Squatch that wrote into us, one of our patrons. He said, I hit rank 5, don't have the time to make the push to legend and feel like it's out of my depth. I feel like I caught the car and now I don't know what to do with it. And by resetting the amount of time that takes to a much smaller amount of time, what you do is you take away the grind, but you instead draw this really tight focus on that player's assigned pool of skill and that amount of time that they're investing. And at this point, I think it's fair to say that most people generally know where they're going to hit every month. They start at the same place. They probably end in a similar place unless they go out of their way to spend more time and learn more and focus more and push. They're going to stay in that same kind of bracket. It almost feels like placements. Almost feels like bronze, silver, gold, plat, GM, whatever. And to move from that assigned pool, you either have to not play, because you literally can't drop lower more than 5 ranks, or you have to push really hard and move up. If you're at the same spot in that format, and you don't want to do either, you go play Wild. If you're at the same spot in Wild, well, you're there now. And by doing this, what Blizzard has done is they take away that feeling of change and movement from the player. They take away that player's ability to influence their environment and make it different, because it's not only just the grind. People talked about the 16 to Legend grind. People talked about the 16 to 5 grind. But remember that feeling when you did it really fast one month and you felt super proud? Or remember that feeling when you said, I'm going to do it with a class I don't have Golden yet, and you had to play Priest because, of course, Priest is the one that you have to play. But remember when you had to play Priest or Rogue or Hunter, that one you didn't like because it was the last one, and it might not even have been good right then, but then you did the same with an off-meta deck that you did with an on-meta deck, and you felt really good. It was that feeling of progress, of growth, of flexing different muscles. But when you go from Legend back to 4, or 5 back to 9, and you play the same number of games every month, and you end up in the same spot, and you drop back to the same spot, you're removing that variety from that player. Because you're matched against similar players. Your games are longer. You're against people of similar skill. You can't climb the same way with less capable decks. You can't spend the same amount of time and play a bunch of games quickly. There's far less skill mismatches, which is closer in terms of each game being valuable in terms of practice, but much harder to play casually. Much harder to play without the full attention or without getting frustrated. And because that's making every climb every month the same, the only thing that provides variety is the meta. But we talked about this in the last episode, right? Baku, Quest, Recruit, Giggling Inventor. This is all stuff that was around except for Giggles at the end of Witchwood. And the decks right now, one of the chief complaints, something that we talked about last week, is how the games feel samey. And Boomsday started full of promise but didn't deliver. So when you remove a player's ability to make progression and change the talent pool they're in by their performance, by limiting them to a 5-rank bracket, and when you remove the variety of gameplay by limiting RNG, by making mechanics that trigger on turns 1 or 2, by printing a card like Giggling Inventor that's every turn 5, by a huge order of margin over than any other card in the format, it's played consistently in every deck. There's nothing new unless you go out of your way, like Appa is doing, to make something new. The onus is on you as a player, and that's different for Hearthstone. That's not something Hearthstone has had before this ladder change and before the design of this meta.
Yeah, this is very weird. I just kind of made this connection. It feels very much like other competitive multiplayer games, like League of Legends or Overwatch or StarCraft or something with the placement system, where you get dropped in, and this is your general skill level. And I think this might be why a lot of people are feeling bummed out, is because they're not progressing at the same pace. Because a lot of it, I think, now comes down to your improvement as a player to get out of that specific tier that you're in. Because when there's less stars, you can climb ranks faster with much less games. So maybe mistakes you're making or even good plays you're making maybe aren't swaying as many games in that system as it does in this one. I'm brain farting.
So they added what a lot of people wanted them to add, essentially, which is bronze, silver, gold, platinum to the game almost.
Yeah.
But now that people are playing it, they're realizing that the ELO hells that you hear about and it's almost like those are now a bigger part of Hearthstone. It just has a different skin on it.
Yeah, well,
being like rank focused is definitely going to hurt you in this system because you have to be individually focused on your strengths and weaknesses and what you can improve on as a player to have that progression. It's much harder to have that progression now, but I honestly think in these kind of systems it's more rewarding when you actually get that progression.
well, and if we're going to make the parallel, let's say WoW, right? Every week, your quest reset. You start over. And every week, for those of you that play WoW, the words island expeditions will make a lot of sense here. It is a very time-consuming activity with weekly rewards that every week you're like, ugh, I don't want to have to do this, but then you do it anyways, and you get it done, and you get an upgrade, and you get that reward. You spend the time. It's something that seems menial in concept, but you do it because it's something to do inside the framework of the game that you love. And in Hearthstone, the grind from 16 to Legend was a lot of games. First-time player, I would say between 300 and 400 games. Probably 40 hours a month. But by taking away 75% of that grind, Team 5 said, you can end up in the same spot by spending a quarter of the time on our game in the environment that you love, and we're not going to add any new goals. There's no new plateaus. You can climb higher if you want to climb higher, that's on you. But we're not going to change anything based on how you perform compared to when it took you 4 times as much time. So, instead of what took 40 hours a month, you do it in 10 hours a month, they didn't give us anything to do with that last 30. That time that we were spending, that we were expecting to spend, that hasn't been spoken for by Hearthstone. And it might have been by tournament mode, right? That might have been the thing that we can put time into, because if you replace your rank with the comparison I'm going to use, Magic Online, back in the day, and do not for 1 second think I'm saying Magic Online did not have flaws, because boy, we could talk about that for a long time.
There's
long
There's
time.
not enough time in the month.
That would be 4 bonus episodes, 1 per version. Anyway, we're not getting into that. But the thing that they had was a premier event lobby where there were daily events where you played 4 rounds and you got prizes based on your placement, and premier events a couple times a week in different formats where you got bigger prizes based on your placements. And they were commitments of time, and they were extremely time intensive. And there were, again, all sorts of issues with these, but there was a way to play that wasn't just play a game and boost your rating, which doesn't actually mean anything. What you would do is you would play, and your result would be based on that event, that tournament, and then you would get a thing. And you could do that forever. And it didn't matter what the meta was like or what your rating was, because you did a thing, you committed your time, you made a read on what the meta was like at that moment, and if you did it right, you got rewarded with stuff. Here's your stuff. That is repeatable forever, and that's what tournament mode could have been. And they could have even taken the arena button and made standard arena, Brawliseum, and draft arena, which is what it is now, and just add 1 screen between that button and use the content they've had in the game before, where you try and take a single deck from 0 to 12, and then you get stuff. That could be in the game forever. You could have that behind the button that's already on the main screen forever. And just how popular was that? We all looked at it and said 1,000 gold? What a ripoff. Nobody's going to do that. They had to raise the limit of how many times a single account could do it, because Dog did over 100. It's just something new to do. Ben Brode said it was
as long as it's heroic brawl, because it doesn't. What we found, or at least what I found, is that most of the players do not bother with the regular Brawliseum,
right?
The one that they've been doing lately. But I'm waiting for heroic to come back, because that that feels so much different. The reward at the end just felt so much better. It felt worth going for. It felt like a worthwhile placement of my time, whereas the Brawliseum currently does not. You just might as well play ladder. It feels like the reward system just isn't good enough.
It needs to be higher investment, higher time commitment, higher reward. It needs to be I spend my money and my time, and I earn something if I earn it, and if I win a lot, and everyone in here is playing hard. And Ben Brode said this is kind of our version of an in-game tournament client. This is our test as a tournament client, right? And it was hard. It was difficult to do. And when you got a high amount of wins, you were comparing with your friends. You were talking about what worked. You were sharing decklists. You were seeing if you could get there with the meme deck. When Kalento got 12-0 with Kingsbane Rogue, you're like, that guy is amazing because he's Kalento. And then the people that won and got those 50 packs and 3 golden legendaries are like, this is crazy. But that's off of eating all of the dead money in that event that tons of people paid in 1,000 gold to, which is a gold sink. And then you can earn, one person earns the gold back, then people spend more money, and people spend more. It could have been so much more, and it's one button that they can add in the game. One button.
Yeah, I mean, you wrote a lot about this. It's hard for me to believe that this is where their head is at. It's hard for I guess it's not that hard when I think about it, because a lot of the changes make sense to me. When I first looked at the article, I skimmed through it, and I must have skipped over the tournament mode part, and I don't know why I did. But I looked at everything, and I said, this seems like an overall positive thing. I was excited about some of the things in it, and especially about the rank 26 to 50, even though that has literal no bearing on my play experience at all. I just felt like it's a really positive thing.
Oh, it's awesome. It's
that is
awesome.
happening.
And you look at this article, remember what we've been asking for years, clear, concise, transparent communication. And while the message of this article is mixed and complicated, the method in which it was communicated, especially if it's a consistent thing, is exactly what we've been asking for. It was perfect. It was awesome.
Oh yeah, the layout and everything was fantastic. This has been, content aside, their best news update I think ever.
It's not even close. Not even close.
Yeah.
They've been so clear about what is going on. They open up the hood. If this becomes a regular thing, this is the first one, so they had to rip the Band-Aid off, right? And say, here's what we're working on. By the way, no tournament mode. Bye. But there's a lot here.
I kind of want to get into that a little bit because I haven't really touched on the no tournament mode thing yet on the podcast. So my reaction was a little different than most people because I took the last post kind of as a whole as opposed to separate parts. Like in one part it says no tournament mode, it's scrapped for now. And then another part is our version of tournament mode wasn't going to be good. So I kind of read those two together as opposed to reading them in two separate pieces. So together, I think it's honestly worse in the moment. It feels bad in the moment, but it's going to be overall better for the game. Because if their vision for tournament mode was just a tack on to Fireside Gatherings, which sounds like it was where they were leaning, that would have been really, really terrible to release into the client and just be like, all right, this is what we came up with. What's done is done. Here's your tournament mode. And then just never look at it again. But instead, they're actually canceling it, going back into the lab, and I'm sure they're not done with it. They're just saying it's suspended indefinitely so they could go back to the drawing board, figure out what they want, because they know people want this. They're not just going to abandon it. I think people are getting the wrong idea. Like, they're abandoning it forever. We're just not getting tournament mode. No, they're just going back to the drawing board on this. They're not just going to not have it. Because of the reasoning in the article. If their reasoning was different, as opposed to this isn't what our community wanted, which is why we're scrapping it, then I would think differently. But I think they want to put out something that the players want and will actually use and that will make them happy. And the analogy that I used in my video was a movie you're looking forward to has a specific release date. Let's say, for this example, it's December 20th. And then we get into December, and then the studio says, we're behind schedule, we're not ready to release it. The movie's been pushed to February 20th. Would you rather them release it on the 20th of December and have it be awful? Or would you rather wait a little bit, like wait some period of time, not saying that this is going to be a little bit for tournament mode, I'm sure it'll be a while, but would you rather wait for a good product as opposed to a terrible product?
I would rather get a terrible product and tell them what to improve on it, because if without anything,
yes, that would be ideal, but Hearthstone is all about having their polished client, and I think that is at odds with having betas.
A PTR as well is not the answer here, but I find it hard to agree with the conclusion that it's going. I'm not going to say they're never going to do tournament mode, though I do think, and I'm going to get into this in a little bit, that the devs are focused on a different realization of the future of Hearthstone. But the sentence that got to me about, I don't think this is going to be a thing we're going to see in the near future. We were forced to conclude that we needed to think about how and where we want to improve Hearthstone's overall social experience before we can tackle adding a satisfying and robust implementation of in-game tournaments that all players can enjoy. So, if we say tournament mode is back to the drawing board, I get it. If you say tournament mode does not align with our current values, I get it. They didn't say either. What they did say is, we're not doing this anymore, but also we're going to pay attention to other things first. And I enjoy the simplicity of the Hearthstone client, and I think there is value in that simplicity and accessibility. But it is worth noting, addressing Hearthstone's overall social experience in the past 5 years, not a lot has changed. They changed sorry to WoW in terms of emotes, which I think is the actual biggest social change they've made. There's no provision for in-game reporting. We've seen and discussed awful names with no filtering on the name content. Still there. Rage ads, still there. Appear offline is a new thing. They added deck codes,
which they reversed.
Wait, what?
They reversed that a while ago.
Appear offline is still a thing you can do, but it no longer
changes the client.
It no longer makes it so that it's your opponent. You know who you're playing against at all times.
Yep. So there's hand size tooltips now, which is a good improvement. Tavern Brawl has been a few years now. 18 deck slots, which took them 2.5 years. Deck codes, which I think is the single most important thing they've added, if not the wild format. They added the friendly challenge timer, theoretically. They added borrow deck, which I think is pretty cool. And they added a Mac client that doesn't turn your screen rainbow colors randomly, which I'm a big fan of. I don't have a Mac, but I like that people can play in a Mac without worrying about the kaleidoscope. But unless they give us demonstrated proof that they intend to iterate the client and work on the social side sooner rather than later, which they could. If they're saying, until we fix any and all of Hearthstone's current social issues, we're not going to do tournament mode, that's a really big until. So I'm not going to say never, but I'm going to say this is a pretty clear message that it's not the kind of priority they're going to. But I think this fits part of their larger message, because when you look at what else is in this article, Blizzard is recognizing the need for progression for new players. The new player ladder is the most important addition they've had to the game, maybe ever. It is a fantastic improvement. And then you look at the classic cards, right? These are introductory mechanics. This is what a mage does. By the way, rogues, we're telling new players that rogue burgles cards. Remember in the past, since before last week, where you said rogue class identity is burgling cards, you're like, no, it's not. Now they're literally putting a card in the classic set that makes it Rogue's class identity. They're making Mage randomly freeze things, discover random spells. They're adding simple, clear, mechanical cards. They're making a bundle with awesome dragons, because dragons are awesome. They're giving out more loot, and they're just making it clearer for new players. They're implementing progression and reward for the people that matter the most getting into the game. I think that's a really, really important and relevant and super positive thing that they did. Could not have been more positive, honestly. I don't know what you guys think.
Yeah, I think the new player stuff's fantastic. I think one of my favorite little lines in there was that if you start a new account for any reason, if you're an experienced player or if you just don't want to sit through the intro, you have a skip intro option, so you don't have to play all those matches against the AI. You're not forced to do that.
I had a coaching for an EU person. I had a coaching for an EU patron once. And I'm like, okay, I'll just log over to EU and just click through this tutorial and help them out. And I was like, I have to reschedule. This is taking 2 hours. Like, it just takes so long. It takes forever. And being aware of that and saying a person can just skip it, even though they're indicating you'll get some kind of loot, and it's probably not going to be worth it to play through it in an alternate account, they're aware. They know. They know what's going on. So I really like that they get that idea and they understand a new player has to feel growth and progress. They have to. And they're giving it to them. And they're giving them cool new toys to play with because every single new player wants Ysera. They see Ysera for the first time, and the green hole appears in the beginning of the screen. Then they see a card they've never seen before. It's like, 4 mana 7/6. How do I get that? I want that. There have been so many people that have just made golden Ysera as soon as they have the dust. They're like, this is awesome. It's a dragon. It's awesome. I'm glad they're doing it. But the message that's coming clear, and I've alluded to this a few times. You look at the reduction in endgame content and time commitment expected for players in our caliber. You look at the realigning of resources that Blizzard is putting into tournament features and instead they're focusing on social features. You look at the presence of mind they have to touch people's cards a little bit less, to give new players somewhere new to try out Hearthstone and feel like they're growing, to remove the need for people to play 40 hours a month to get back to where they were before. And the message I'm receiving is Hearthstone as it is staying as it is because it's meant to be your hobby. It is not meant to be your main game. It is not meant to be your passion. It is not meant to be the thing you do all the time. And if you want to play it more, you can. And the players that put in more time, they can grind Legend. They can grind Top Ladder. But you notice what they didn't talk about in the works? Legend, Ladder, and HCT. Was not mentioned. And when you're going out of your way so significantly to be so thorough and comprehensive with their communication, which they were, and I greatly respect and appreciate it, it's sending the message that they think that's fine. And that it's not going to change right now. It's not the focus right now. It's not something that they even think needs to be discussed because it's not on the radar, or at least we don't need to believe it's on the radar. So when you look at what Hearthstone is right now, the removal of time investment to get to the goals indicates that Team 5 says this game is meant to be engaged with in a bite-sized portion unless you want to be the high competitor, in which case you can grind your heart out in Legend Ladder. But there's not really a good place between hobby and passion outside of that. And that means Blizzard wants you to fit this into your life, but not make it your life. And Appa, when you've been talking today, you fit Hearthstone into your life on your terms. You fit Hearthstone into your life your way. And you've been focused on having it be an expression of yourself. And having it be a way you connect with this hobby that you enjoy so much, that you play on your terms, and that you're getting so much out of because each game is fun. And that's what they want. That is what Blizzard wants. The issue that I think we're facing in the community now isn't that this is a bad thing. Because I don't think this is a bad thing. I think this is a good thing. I think Hearthstone, competitively, when I play Magic competitively, I was the most miserable I've ever been my entire life. There were so many days where I would lose in Hearthstone, there were no ranked floors, I would tilt down 5 ranks, and my internal mindset would just be, I just need to play better, and then I'll win more games. It's 5 a.m., I have work tomorrow, I don't care, I'll just keep clicking play. I didn't want to end the loss. We've all had that feeling, especially Botticus. So What's going on right now?
He's not wrong.
I'm not saying
3 hour losing sessions.
I will never forget tilting down from rank 1 3 stars to rank 6 no stars on vacation and being awake in bed at 5 in the morning
vacation
next to my girlfriend and just being like fuming mad, just raging. And it wasn't healthy.
I remember the exact instant I knew that I needed to take a break from Hearthstone. I was playing a Jade Druid mirror. My opponent went Wild Growth, Nourish, then UI'd very quickly. And I got so mad that this person, that the game was so unfair that it gave my opponent ramp and not me, that I like picked up my keyboard and physically slammed it down on the desk and then just like tossed my mouse against the wall and walked out of the room. And then 10 minutes later, I was like, holy shit, I need to calm down. That's too much. This is too much emotional investment in this.
And
There's something wrong.
That's what these competitive mindsets breed into, and pushing that feeling at the very top of the game, the hyper-competitive players that are actually flying to tournaments, whatever, you can't turn that off. But I shouldn't have that feeling at rank 6. That's not what rank 6 is for.
Yeah, I think a lot of what's happening right now in Hearthstone is there's like a perfect storm of things changing, and it's with like the ladder system resetting or changing, and some devs leaving to go over to Second Breakfast, right? That's the name of the company.
Second Dinner.
Second Dinner.
Second Breakfast is in Lord of the Rings. What about Elevensies?
Yeah, so I think a lot of it is there's changes that are happening that require adjustment, and it would be better to adjust to that in a more compelling format. And while the format is balanced and the stats show each class has different decks you can play, it doesn't feel fun for a lot of people. So that, coupled with the fact that you need adjustments to this new system if you've been playing for a long time, I think just culminate in this really bad feeling on ladder when you're not progressing in a format that you don't enjoy as much.
Yeah, I really think that right now Hearthstone is suffering from a significant shift in development expectations of people's engagement with the games, and the players haven't caught up yet. Because a year ago, Hearthstone was our 40 hour a month hobby, and now it's our 10 hour a month hobby, and people are putting the extra 30 hours in anyway, and it's not going anywhere, and it turns into frustration. And if we say Team 5's philosophy, if we assume their expectation is for this to be the hobby instead of your main game, I really think the feeling that players are having reading in the works is realizing this, is saying what this game has meant to me in the past and how it has used my time is not going to be feasible going forward, because it's just not meant to have that kind of depth and focus in a competitive way. It's meant to be enjoyable. The moment-to-moment interactions are meant to be fun. You're supposed to look at that Servant of Kalamos and get that actual Kalamos, and then play that, and it's awesome. But that's not how we've interacted with Hearthstone in the past. It's a change in our relationship with the game because the game has changed what it can offer us. And the misalignment in expectations leads to the feelings that we're seeing in the world. That's my hypothesis here. That Team 5 firmly believes Hearthstone it's not a casual game. It's not what I'm saying, because you can be competitive. But the competition is not meant to eat all of your game time, energy, and focus. And the game is not designed to bear that burden, where in the past we were encouraged to give Hearthstone all of our game time, and it would take it all. And now it's giving some of it back, and we don't know what to do with it. That misalignment of expectations, combined with the adjustment of Team 5's focus in making the game accessible and fun and making better early game content, and removing the end game grind, allows us time to do other things, and if we choose not to, the game won't bear the burden of that extra time, and we have to adjust. And I've made the personal decision, Appa, I want to be like you. I'm gonna grow up just like you. It's my voice is cracked because I've been drinking beer and talking all day for 2 hours. But
Do you have Benjamin Button disease?
I'm pretty sure I age in the forward direction. Fairly confident.
The best part is the names align. That's that was
Yep.
my favorite part of that joke.
Which joke?
The Benjamin Button joke.
What you mean? My name is also
Because your
Benjamin.
name is
But I age forward.
I thought.
Oh no. Okay. You know, I've known your name's Ben for a long time.
But that's not how we interact. It's not a thing.
I have never made the connection that Ben equals Benjamin, and now that's weird. That's
It's-
weird to me.
Doesn't it kind of make the hairs in the back of your neck stand up? It's kind of weird. So, anyways,
Ugh.
about. Please don't use my IRL name. It's weird. It's different.
Do you guys even know my first name?
Yeah, it's
John.
Bot. Last name Ikas.
Okay, good.
Yeah. So, the point here is.
We're about to get doxxed. For sure.
The point here is, I want to realign my time and my energy with what Hearthstone is willing to give me and not what I want it to give me. I want to engage in the game's turns because every time that any of the three of us have tried to engage with the game on our terms and not its terms, we've lost and been mad and sad and took a break. And sometimes Hearthstone wants to have 0-mana Corridor Creeper, and that's somebody else's game, that's not mine. Sometimes Hearthstone wants to have J Druid Mirrors, we get you out on turn 4, and then Appa's like, I'm not gonna do that. It doesn't... Whenever our expectations, our reality misaligns is when we have trouble. And whenever people focus on results, that leads to pressure. If you focus on behaviors and environment and feelings, that's something you can control without the pressure. And Hearthstone's a game is saying, chill out. Saying, relax. You know what? I want to do that. But that also means there are going to be 30 hours a month that I gave Hearthstone. I'm going to put them somewhere else. Maybe it'll be games on my Switch. Maybe it'll be World of Warcraft. Maybe it'll be I'll actually sleep more than 5 hours a night. Fat chance. No way. Come on. But it's a feeling of drifting apart from a friend in high school, but still being in touch whenever they come into town, as opposed to spending every day together. It's not worse, but it's different. We've all grown up a little bit. And this is a shifting relationship with the game that we all need to manage. And one of the things that I'm worried about is that in some cases we've been taking this feeling out on each other. We argue on Twitter, we have disagreements and tell each other our opinions are wrong or our feelings are wrong because we're all trying to process the same feeling of moving on a little bit. And it's hard. It's a hard thing to do. And when we all kind of had to have that grieving process over reading this article of no tournament mode and no nerfs and nothing's going to change, it made us deal with our own feelings. And, it's hard to admit sometimes our feelings are so engaged in this game and this hobby, but the community is more than a hobby. This is our lifestyle. This is our sphere. This is our day-to-day universe in a lot of ways. But we can't go back. And we have to be solution focused. How do we go forward from here? And personally, my answer is going to be engage as much as the game wants to be engaged with. Focus on having a good time. If I want to compete, I can spend the time, but that's going to be a pressure-oriented process. I'd much rather have fun. And I'd much rather play Elemental Shaman or Mechathune Priest or Savit's Elemental Quest Mage, or I'd rather 0-3 in UHL with wacky decks and 3-0 with the meta decks and beat myself up when I lose. And there's a lot of people that have engaged. Go ahead about it.
A lot of that seems like you with, say, if it took you 40 hours to get to Legend before, it takes you 10 hours now, and with the 30 extra hours, like you're getting to your goal already, but then since you don't have a higher, like, tangible rank goal that you reach for, you're just looking to maximize fun. And I think that's the shifting dynamic that people are going to have to recognize with Hearthstone. Is if you're not like actively looking to improve, you're going to have way more time on your hands at the rank where you may have ended the season at, like last year. You may get there really quickly and then find it difficult to advance from there, maybe you have some stuff you have to work on, but if you're not worried about advancing, then just have fun with whatever.
Or advancing versus improving, right? Also, a very important
Yeah.
difference
Yeah.
because you are not your rank, and we've said this so many times. But it's people. Blizzard is great at addiction mechanics. Way too good, honestly. Way, way too good at addiction mechanics. And the gold fucking star is the thing that has driven so many people to near madness. Where you think about that star getting taken away, especially at the bottom of a rank, and it just burns away your progress. Just burns it in front of you. It feels
You
awful.
can't lose stars at this rank.
Oh, that might feel worse. It's like you just go up and you try and help somebody, and they just pat you on the head, and it's just like, you tried. We won't punish you because you know what? You did your best. Gosh darn it. It's all about the expectations. It's all about the relationship. It's all about understanding what we can do going forward. And something I want to bring up, I don't want to talk about Artifact. I don't want people to think Artifact made Hearthstone different. No, it didn't. You made Artifact into a thing that bears the burden of what you want Hearthstone to be, where it isn't that thing anymore. It's just conveniently timed. Remember Gwent? Gwent was the same thing a year ago. Life Coach quit. We were all going to go play Gwent because Hearthstone didn't have a tournament mode. Guess what? Life Coach ain't playing Gwent anymore. And we're all still here.
Gwent didn't make it.
And I enjoyed Gwent as a side project. And what Hearthstone's going to be right now is a side project. Because generally, those of us in this sphere, in this universe, the three of us together, I think we can all agree in saying choosing to be competitive at something and then being bad at it is not something we are prepared to deal with. Right? If something is your main game, that is what you are good at, and then you are good at it, and it's a thing you do until you're good at it, and you keep being good, and if you're not good, you don't play it. That is what our main game relationship is, and has been for a long time. That's the tournament mindset. And the choices that I've made in my life are main game or side game, and the main game is the one I compete at, and the other are the ones I can fit in when I want to relax. I am choosing to make Hearthstone my relaxation game. That is what I am choosing to do today. It's what I have made peace with over the past couple days. And you know what? I logged in today, and I played the Tavern Brawl, and I didn't have fun halfway through the game, and I conceded, and I closed the client. And I went and I did something else. And I was okay with that. Because I'm going to engage with it in a way that feels fun for me. And the game is still good, but I can't expect from it the same thing that it gave me when it was different. And instead, I'm going to rely upon what it can give me now, and appreciate the variety in my gaming experience, appreciate the relationships the game has allowed us to build, appreciate the time it's still willing to give me on the train, on the bus, late at night, if I'm doing something else, if I want to play a game on the couch and I don't want a nice computer, if I want to buy a tablet and I want to play with my finger at 1 a.m. in bed on vacation, Hearthstone is perfect. I can still look at Decklists, I can still look at stats, we can still talk and analyze and discuss. What we can't and won't do is take all of our time, all of our free energy, and dump it into this thing that will give us some carrot on the end of the treadmill for all of this energy. That's not what it is anymore, and we need to adjust our thinking.
I only had one last thing to close this out, which is not really my thing, but something I saw that I find is interesting, and I'm glad that we kind of structured this explanations the way that we did, because I think it falls in line with what this post is about. And it's a tweet by Iksar replying to a thread essentially started by Deck Tech. Shout out to Deck Tech, who had some feedback regarding this announcement. And it's the tweet reads: "The feedback I find useful is when players say what they personally like and don't like, and why they think they feel the way that they do. People often feel the need to say things like, all pro players think X, all new players want Y, everyone clearly thinks Z is the best." And I think that's important to distinguish, that we shouldn't be speaking for everybody else. We can only speak to our own personal experiences with the game, what we're doing with the game, how we want to interact with the game. And when you're giving feedback and expressing how you feel about the game, you should be expressing your feelings and not trying to express everybody else's. So I'm kind of just glad that we all went with our personal experiences, how we're interacting with the game now. And if you have, or I'm interested to hear kind of your experiences, what you think is going on personally for you with the game, and how you're actually interacting with it, instead of trying to say, oh, this is what I saw in a forum, this is what I saw, this is what people seem to be talking about on Reddit. What is your personal experiences with the game? Because I think that's really what's important.
And honestly, I want to give a shout out here early before the coin concedes to the boys over at Team One Trick, who put together a video, an open letter in the wild format, 6 minutes long, really, really well structured. Because none of us are wild players, I think. I think that's fair to say. Appa specifically said that in his video, but I watched the Team One Trick video, and it's not about what you think it is. It's not about the balance in the format, because that's what I thought it was going to be going in. And they spent 6.5 minutes talking about things like a wild queue at the beginning of the month, if you rank up quickly, will take 10 minutes for a game to fire. The player base is about 1/20th of the size. Players are currently incentivized to dust wild cards. And that the format does not have enough information or a big enough player base or incentivization to engage with it in order for balancing to be a relevant issue. And the fact that they put together this well-made, well-discussed, concise, clear, open, understanding video of positive tone, actively seeking Blizzard's engagement, and providing solutions to questions that weren't even being asked really impressed me. Really, really impressed me. And I would encourage everyone to watch their message to get an idea of the kind of things that we may not even be aware of as standard players. If you're listening to this and you haven't played a lot of Wild and you're not familiar with these struggles, I certainly wasn't. It was fascinating, but also on how to express feedback. And like you were saying, Bot, Deck Tech talked about how to express feedback and treating devs as people and engaging in a way that works. It's really what this entire section is about. We want to engage with Hearthstone and the people that make it and the people that play it in a way that works. And being aware of what we're feeling and experiencing is step one. And then from there, we have to make choices based on, the courage to change the things I can, the wisdom to accept the things I can't, and the serenity to, this is the serenity prayer from AA. I'm going to look it up because I want to. Grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And I think that's where we need to start as people, community members, players, human beings. We need to understand why we're feeling what we're feeling before we can talk about it. And then once we do, we need to figure out if this is the world that we're going to face, if this is the hand that we're dealt, how do we play it? Because we all know that person that complains about RNG, and Baku was the first card drawn even after they mulligan it back. Sorry, Appa, I'm putting you on blast. That happened today. But he didn't complain. It was fine. It's fine. It's thick patches. It's not a big deal. But
look, man, it didn't happen to me. I just lost a bet to it happening to someone else.
So, point here is not that. It's not the point. It was just funny. I had to mention it. But the point here is, we know that person that complains about RNG and it's always somebody else's fault and it's always the shuffler's fault or the game's fault or how lucky this thing was. And they're not a person that you generally want to engage with because everything is always negative. That's not who we want to be as people. At least not in this podcast, and I am certain I can speak for the members of our community because everyone listening to this show and the way that you've all engaged with us has been so consistently great. It's easily the best part of the game. It's not even close. It's an order of magnitude better. And what we can do going forward as individuals is determine what can Hearthstone do for me and what can't Hearthstone do for me, and how can I figure out a healthy way to relate to that? And that's kind of the homework that we owe the game and we owe ourselves, and how we can read over this announcement and make changes. And you know what? If the change for you is don't play Hearthstone anymore, that is what it is, because it's a change. And if you want to engage in a different way, in a hyper-competitive way, Artifact might be a good thing for you. Magic Arena might be a good thing for you. Overwatch might be a good thing for you. Here's the Storm, any number of competitive games. There are lots of ways to express that. But if you want to keep playing Hearthstone and you want to enjoy it, there are ways to do it. You just have to allow yourself to accept them. I'm done talking.
I'm just thinking about how I owe Taylor a back rub because she looked at
You
me
blew
and
up
she
her
said,
spot! I tried not to say the name!
All right, anyways. She looked at me and she said, I'm going to draw patches on turn 1 this game. I said, no, you're not. There's no way you get that unlucky again. She said, I'll bet you a back rub. And then she was like, well, how about the first 2 cards? And I was like, that's not the bet, but I'll take that too. And then I go back to my game and I look over and she's staring at me because Baku's in her hand on turn 1. I'm like, no. So, yep. I low rolled a bet pretty hard today.
Oh no, I have to give my fiancé a back rub. How terrible is my life?
I'm not saying it was a bad bet. It's a great bet.
Yeah,
I just
everybody
low
wins.
rolled the bet.
Yeah, well, and she low rolled the Baku. Everybody wins. So anyways, anything to add, boys? Or should I go into the outro?
No, I mean, I have lots of thoughts, and they're all in the video. So watch that thing if you want to hear more in-depth stuff from me.
Okay, well.
How long can this go on?
A while, but we're done now. Thanks to Stephanel for letting us use his cover. Check him out in his channel, linked in our show notes. Big thanks to Wicked Good for deck analysis, Hearthstone for Decklist, Liquipedia for tournament info, Hearthstone tournaments on YouTube for tournament VODs. The show notes for this week's episode are on our website, CoinConcede.com. You can support our show at patreon.com/CoinConcede. Join us every week live by following us on Twitch at twitch.tv/CoinConcede Join our community chats in our Discord at discord.coinconcede.com. Right into our email at coinconcede@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter at coinconcede. If you would like some new CC swag, head on over to the Dad Legend shop. We also still have a Redbubble shop open for now, shop.coinconcede.com. Big thanks to our producers, Variatus, Tacos, and Floral. The Into the Wild League, still awesome. Nate Wolf is still great. Go check it out. Taylor's playing. Isn't she undefeated?
Yeah, I was actually... You let's just transition into my coin concedes from there.
I blew up in the spot now. I'm so bad at this. And props to UHL. Appa, who's your coin concede this week, and why is it Taylor?
So, Taylor, or Dr. Evil, as you may know her, is my coin concede for this week, because every time we would go to a tournament, or con, or an event, or something, I'd be like, hey, you should play in the tournament. And she's like, no, I don't really want to. And she'd always act disinterested, but the real reason that we got around to was she didn't feel like she was good enough to compete, didn't want to embarrass herself or anything like that. And she is 5-0 in the Into the Wild League with a game score of 15-2.
What?
So, yeah, she's 15-2 in games.
I've done the math, and that win rate is bananas.
Yeah, it's nuts. So she's real good at Hearthstone.
No, it's
even though she
it's
won't
bananas. We already decided.
Yeah,
that.
we can't have a
podcast without the boy.
Aqua meme.
Okay, so I do have Druid this week in UHL.
Oh, do you need a list?
Will it contain burst?
I know the 2 cards that are going in, and I haven't figured out the other 28.
Yes.
Wild Growth is a possibility, but not confirmed. There are 2 cards that will go in before Wild Growth.
Look, Wild Growth doesn't push damage. This does not fit the burst archetype. And we're off the rails again. My second coin concede is to Jared Tendler, the guy who I was talking about who wrote that book. So if you're interested, I would recommend you can go to his Twitter, just Google Jared Tendler, and I think it's just like his pinned message on his Twitter. I almost said on his Tinder, on his Twitter. That you can like download those for free with the codes and stuff. So interesting book. I'll be finishing it and the second edition probably tomorrow because we're going on a road trip to my parents' house to get a new car. Which also, thank you to everybody who donated to that GoFundMe. It helps a ton.
Yay! Automobiles. Botticus. Coin concedes.
So I'd like to coin concede to Slaviticus. We had an awesome coaching session the other day. We went undefeated. We won all of the games, which was 3 in 1 hour. So you guessed it, we were playing Odd Warrior. And Super Collider is a messed up card. I didn't get to play enough with that card before that coaching session, and wow.
Yeah, that one's good.
Oh, you didn't know.
When I saw that card, I thought about how you could slam Mountain Giants into each other, and I was like, man, that probably won't come up often enough. But just slamming like mid-game minions just into each other and watching them both disappear is like, man, this card's like a 6 for 1.
It's
This is so good.
It's real good. My favorite thing of all time is slamming a Nanoyatron into a Giggling Inventor. It's so good. And two of the 3 games we won were in drastically like unfavored matchups, which made me just really want to play some Odd Warrior, even though I know I'm going to queue into the mirror match and just hate my life. But it was sweet. So coin concede to him for making that an awesome coaching session. I'm real excited to play some Hearthstone in the next couple days.
Dude, Odd Warrior is so good. And the first game I played with Super Collider, the first attack I ever had was in a Mountain Giant, which then hit another Mountain Giant. And then the turn after, I hit his Twilight Drake. No, I hit his... It was something... I hit a Dread Infernal into a Skulkengeist and Dynamaticked it. And, like, it's... When you hit with Super Collider, you hit it once, and then your opponent looks at their board, and they're like, how do I ever develop into this? And then they try and play 3 things, and you're like, I got this brawl. So, bye.
Yeah, it's always a damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Yeah.
Unless you have ooze. And then the second Super Collider comes down, you're like,
Yep.
they can play 2 of them?
Yeah. Non-legendary. And I'd like to coin concede to Lopana and B-Squatch, my 2 coaching sessions today, who are both awesome and helped inform my attitude in this episode and my perception, because Appa, B-Squatch, and you could have said the exact same thing about relationship with the game. And he was telling me about the feelings that he had before, where he would have a long day at work and feel really crappy and feel like he had to go home and clear his quests. And it just, the sense of obligation around the game of Hearthstone drove so much negativity for him. He took some time off, let his quest pile up, went on his vacation, came back, and just like, I'm going to play when I want to play. It's fine. And he's just, I can hear it in his voice, and he's playing better, but also is happier, and also playing less. And all these things are connected a little bit. And it's still, we had a coaching session today. We played Even Shaman. It was super fun. And I think we won every game. And it was great. And Lopana as well, who's been a consistent patron of our show forever. And also might be a WoW buddy now. I'm not sure yet. But Lopana, I see you. And again, we just had a ton of fun. And everyone who listened to somebody else this week, if someone else had a feeling or an emotion or an opinion this week, and you read it, and you heard it, and you weren't sure if it was right, and instead of saying you're wrong, or but what about this, you said, tell me more about that, or I'm sorry you feel that way, then you are my coin concede. Because I'm a big fan of everyone that took the time during this frustrating period where we're all trying to reevaluate our feelings and why this is happening, that said, it is more important to me that I hear what you feel than tell you what I think. Props to those folks. All right, Botticus, where can people find you?
I'm on Twitter at BotticusHS. I mean, technically I have a Twitch too, twitch.tv/Botticus, but if that's going to get any streams on it in the near future, it's probably going to be a WoW stream, so check that out if you want.
You can find me on Twitter at Appa_HS or on Twitch at twitch.tv/AppaHS. That's with no underscore. And I will most likely be streaming whenever we get back into town on Monday, I believe. I should be free after class to stream, so yeah, I haven't streamed in a while, but actually really enjoying Hearthstone right now, so I probably will. And I'm actually really excited because this weekend I'm playing in the first WESG qualifier for the event in California later this year, so I'm excited for that. Hat, where can people find you?
You can find me on Discord, wherever Hearthstone is discussed, or probably other Discords. You can find me on Twitter at RidiculousHat. You can find me on twitch.tv/RidiculousHat, though I'm kind of revamping what I want my channel to be. Again, relationship with Hearthstone, very different, but I plan on taking a bit of a breather from pushing the game and then coming back to it and having that stream being a little bit more focused on finding the fun and still, winning games when I can. But I'm also definitely still streaming on UHL as a participant/victim, twitch.tv/United Hearthstone League. Check me out over there. And that will be our show. Keep calm and just keep calm. Keeping calm is good right now. And if you see us on the ladder, say hello, add us after. We'll talk about our decks, how they're fun and crazy and full of elementals. We'll have a good conversation after you coin Concede.
Coin Concede.
Coin Concede.
Take cold comfort in your victory. You win. I can rest now. You win. For now. Now, your victory proves nothing.
The day is yours.
I choose death. You have triumphed. This time. This hunt